are stories that connect us to ourselves and each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid, wild colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. And now, exclusively on KGRA Radio, I give you your host for Soul Wanderings Radio. Here's AJ.
Hello, happy day, friend. It is Soul Wanderings night, where we receive an opportunity to hear journey stories from humans from all walks of life, all types of experiences. And these humans show up to share authentic pieces of themselves with all of us. I am AJ Rasmussen, your host. Hi there. I'm super excited to be here with you tonight. It's so enjoyable sharing with you topics that relate to our experiences of being human, a spiritual being living in this anomalous universe. So thank you tons for being here with us tonight. We're about to have so much fun. I promise it's going to be a good night. If you are interested, there's ways that you can participate during the show. If you're listening live, there's the chat room. I recommend you going in there to play. There's other wanders. There's conversation behind the scenes. It's the place where you'll want to be if you have a question for our guests. And it's just a cool place to go. So head on over to kgraradio.com. You'll want to log in and ask questions and all of those things. Like I said, I'm in there. I hang out in there. So this show tonight is going to be a good one. I know there's so many of you who really love stories about all of the things we talk about here on KGRA. But the greatest thing is when you have an amazing storyteller to tell those stories. And tonight, we not only have one guest, but we have two. Two peas in a pod, best pals and sidekicks since childhood. And now together they host a show that many of you are familiar with, Expanded Perspectives. Expanded Perspectives is a podcast created and hosted by both Kyle Philson and Cameron Hale that was influenced by other shows like Mysterious Universe, The Graylian Report, psst, gotta love that Micah Hanks, and The Joe Rogan Experience. In their podcast, Kyle and Cam share stories about the strange and unusual and other topics not commonly discussed. Topics like cryptozoology, I always mess that word up, serial killers, the paranormal, UFOs, supernatural, fae folk, all of the good stuff, which all of them are my personal favorites to hear about. And assuming you are here listening to Soul Wanderings on KGRA Radio, I would imagine these topics are right up your alley as well. So let's get this party started, right, guys? Please welcome
100% right. Yeah, man, let's get it going.
Please welcome to the show, Kyle Philson, and welcome back to the show, Cameron Hale.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us on.
Hi, fellas. I'm so happy you're here, and I wanted to get right into it because I know you have so much to share. But Cameron was just on the show a few weeks ago. Thanks for making more time for us because everyone loved having you here.
It's fun.
And you
Just
brought
fun.
along your sidekick, Kyle.
Dude, yes, of course. Yeah, I'm glad to be here, man. I'm looking forward to it.
It's so good. It's so
He's
good.
He's got a stack of stories. We've got all kinds of stuff to discuss with you and talk about and tell creepy, crazy things.
That's the best. I really love stories. Like, I feel like if I could just sit on the floor Indian style and have someone tell me stories all day, I would be a happy, happy girl.
Good thing for you, we have a bunch of backlog.
A few snacks, a drink, a little stretch break here and there. But this is like my I'm so excited for tonight. It's going to be amazing.
And I see you're building it up. We might let you down. So that's what you got to be careful of.
I love when you say stuff like that.
Don't want to let you down.
You say that and you make comments when I listen to your guys' show about your 30 listeners. And I'm thinking,
don't want to let you down.
Your mind because you have a following.
Don't talk like that, because then I'll get nervous and me and Kyle will start stuttering, and then it turns terrible. Yeah, I mean, most of the time when we're doing our recording, it's literally just me and Cam in the room by ourselves. So we never really think about outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was to speak in front of all of them at the same time, yeah, it'd be frightening.
Right.
But I think the popularity of the show and other podcasts is just like you're talking about. People like to sit down and listen to a story. It's almost like going back in time when people would sit around an old radio and they would listen to a radio program. Sometimes that's better than watching a movie, because much like when you read a book, you're listening to a story, but it's your mind that's creating the images that the story is telling. And I think for whatever reason, people seem to enjoy that. It's kind of something that we've forgotten. But now with the introduction and popularity of podcasts, people are falling in love with podcasts, and that's why they're so popular now. Even 7 years ago when we started, I remember people would be like, now, what is it that you're doing with Cam? And I'd say, well, and I would always say it was internet radio, because they were like, I don't know what a podcast is. But when you said internet radio, they kind of understood. Now there's so many podcasts. I mean, everybody has a podcast, whether it's ESPN, whether it's whatever movie or television series that's out there, they'll also have a podcast to talk about the episode that just aired. I mean, they're everywhere. So we no longer have to hide in the shadows talking about what we do as a hobby. That's right. And what I found is me and Cam both have a love for the paranormal, which is what influenced us to try to start. And we didn't think it would be successful. We're knuckleheads. We don't know what we're doing. We still don't. But when we started, I was surprised at how many people wanted to come forward with their stories. A lot of these stories are ones or experiences they had that they just didn't want to share because they didn't want public ridicule and things like that. And even people I knew who never told me about their experience beforehand, once they heard the show and knew that it was kind of a safe place, they wouldn't be judged or looked down upon, they've pulled me aside privately and told me their story. And what I've learned is a lot more people have strange experiences than I originally thought when I started. A lot more.
Do you feel like they're more comfortable coming out and talking about it because it's more mainstream now? Or have you had this experience the whole 7 years?
No, I would say, yeah, partly. I think people are, because it's more mainstream, are feeling more comfortable telling their story. I think the most thing is depends on what show they go on. So like on our show, we don't judge anybody. Whatever they say they saw, I mean, look, it has an effect on them. It's affected them, whether it was what they saw was real or it was just misidentification, whatever. The effect on them is the same. They walk away from that experience forever changed, whether it was something creepy they saw in the woods, whether it was a ghost they saw in their bedroom, whether it was some strange lights in the sky. It's something that's seared into their memory, and they'll never forget that. So who am I to sit there and say, no, you didn't see that. Now you must have been mistaken. We're not like that. Right. And I feel like if people feel like it's a place where they can share their stories, no one's going to judge them. They're more likely to. And I can't tell you how many times people have come forward, shared their experience. It's something that they've never heard of anyone else having. And then others will hear that story, and then we'll get emails, and then there'll be more people have had similar sightings. And then that kind of makes everybody feel better because they know that they're not alone. I mean, that's the worst feeling in the world, I think, is to see something.
The validation matters, especially when you're seeing something that is so unreal. There's no way you could be seeing it.
And, you will find people that have had strange experiences that are, once they have them, they become super interested in that subject, and they spend the rest of their life looking for it again, hoping to see it again. Mm-hmm. There's others that are terrified, don't want anything to do with it. They hope they never have an experience like that again. And so you meet all different types of people, and you hear from different people. And I think that that's probably my favorite part of the show, is just hearing people's experiences. I mean, literally every day we get emailed to us 5-6 experiences from all over.
That many. Wow.
And, some of them are better than others. And it's not their fault. Sometimes people only see something fleeting, so they didn't get a good chance to look at it. Other people have ongoing experiences where they've seen it since they were a child all the way up into adulthood. I mean, it's just anything you can think of. And like you said, it's the validation that makes others. I mean, like UFOs, the topic of UFOs, people have been following that ever since Kenneth Arnold first saw them in Washington. And now recently the government's actually come forward and said, yeah, there are these aerial phenomenon that are off world that we can't explain. So right there, you're like, well, does that mean every sighting people have had over the years is true? Well, maybe not, but there's certainly some of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can take that.
There's way too many to say it's not real.
For me, right, personally, I've always believed in it. Yeah, I've never had a sighting of a UFO or anything, but it just always was something I was fascinated by. And now to see that it's acknowledged. So
that surprises me. You guys, I hear about Texas having a big old sky. Is that not true?
Oh, it's very true. And people all around us have seen stuff. I mean, even Stephenville is only about 20 miles from here. I've never seen nothing. And I've looked up a lot. Nothing's ever happened around. So,
are you guys the type of fellas that look up into the sky right when you walk outside? Is that something you always do?
Yeah. I do it at work. The guys I work with and work around, when they do see me, they make fun of me for it. Because every time I'm walking around, I'm looking up, looking at the skyline, check all the time, day and night. I can't help it. And especially at night, I can't help it because I'm like, people pay a lot of money for these beautiful vistas. I'm like, have you ever looked up just once? Because it's ridiculous. There's no vista like it. I mean, yeah, sunsets are beautiful, sunrises are beautiful, all that stuff's pretty. But if you've ever gone to a dark spot with no light pollution and looked up, there's nothing beats it.
Nothing in the world.
Just your imagination can go crazy. That, and it's also terrifying. So that makes it fun as well.
Have a little spook going on. And it is a full moon tonight, so make sure you look up tonight.
Will do. If we can see it through these rain clouds.
Oh, it's raining there?
Oh, yeah, we've got a little of it here and there. So hopefully it'll end up clearing off enough that we can see it.
Well, good luck, because I'm a moon girl, and that's good energy right there.
There you go.
Okay, so you guys were prepared to come onto the show with a bunch of stories. And I was telling Cam earlier, 2 hours is never long enough to hear these, because I just want to hear them for hours. But we have our 2 hours, so we'll take them and we'll use every moment we can. So let's get started.
Well, we'll jump into them right here. So
Sure.
I had told you that Kyle and I had a bunch of wild stories about the Fae, and everybody loves Fae stories, little gnome stories, duendes, something about a diminutive fairy-like creature. And when I say fairy, many people think about like what's the Peter Pan and the Tinkerbell. You think of a Tinkerbell, and that's to me, everybody's, oh, you mean Tinkerbell? No. I just mean like it's their, I guess it's almost kind of like their religious circle. I mean, they're all, because they all kind of live in the Fae folk realm. There are pixies, there are gnomes, there are duende, there are all of these little people, and there are good ones, it appears, and there are bad ones, and then there's kind of those that walk the line, that straddle the line of fun and evil, and they, they're just more of a nuisance than anything else. And Kyle and I started covering these stories when we started the show, and people went crazy because they just loved to hear those stories. And like he said, it wasn't long before those stories started coming in. People started sharing links with us. People started reporting stories to us.
Oh, wow.
And we had found that it knows no boundary. Like you would think that it would only be maybe in Scandinavia or Norway or Sweden. You would think it would only be in a few of those areas and it would never really get out. Kind of like they say Bigfoot, there's more here, there's not so much in other places, but you start to see more people come forward with that. It's the same with the Fae. That we found that there's actually no boundary to the Fae. They may change geographically a little, but there's truly no boundary when you look at these Fae things around the globe. So what we were going to discuss, or at least for me, I'm going to speak for myself, are the ones that I like the idea of the little garden gnome looking guys. I like the dudes with like that are the outdoors, more like the duende. And the one, Kyle and I was just discussing this, so I might as well start with it while it's on my mind before we even get going, is we had covered a story that a friend had told us, and they had sent it in, and I can't remember who it was, and I feel bad about it. But the story roughly goes that they were basically remodeling an old barn and chicken coop style thing on a place down in South Texas. And while they were down there, of course, they were working, doing all this stuff, but they weren't staying there. They would leave their tools in like buckets. You put them in 5-gallon buckets, because you're not just going to pick everything back up every day and just go set them against the wall. You come back the next day and continue working. And they said that they had left and they had came back, and they had been this ranch that they were building this house on had been in this man's family for a long time. And they had finally, I guess moved back or ended up inheriting enough of it. So they go back building or remodeling this old place. And the guy said he comes in and he saw what he thought was raccoons run out of the house. Several, like a cluster of them, scatter out of the house. And that it knocked over the tool buckets. He's like, I guess they'd come in here. Maybe they had smelt, if we'd left lunch or somebody left, a bag of chips. Who knows? But that's what they thought it was. So they go about looking around. And like we said, it's getting more daylight where they could see, I believe is how the whole, yeah. And so what he ends up noticing is he's missing a couple of tools. And he sees his chalk line that had been, like his string line, had been snagged, and he can see the line stringing out. And as he follows the line, like, why would a raccoon take it with him? He notices what looks like what they describe the Dewindies or brownies or small Native Americans out in amongst the mesquite trees hiding, and they have some of his tools. And literally, they're like 24 inches tall, like 2 foot, like they're little. And he said that they were several. And that's what he thought was raccoons. And I guess, as I have done other stories, we have talked about Dewindies wearing small game jackets. We had the fella that had seen the small Native Americans that I know, again, down in South Texas, wearing a little jackets, looked like they were made out of skins. We
talked about that last time.
Yeah. Kyle and I had a story from a fella in Colorado that had seen like 4 or 5 of them walking, was wearing like little because they thought they were raccoons, little skin jackets. So
That's
all
so
of this,
cool.
yeah. And then it moved off. They said, they never really had a problem with them. He's like, that was it. So he's like, I don't know if they had been there and they disturbed something. Like I said, it's been so long. I'm going to have to go back, but it's something along the lines, and I don't know why it is, in that Mexico bordered Texas, all South Texas, Southwest Texas. There's a lot of stories of Dwindi or little people in that area. And if you start looking at where they have them, it's like the ones we've seen in Colorado. It's like the ones, the stories we got from there. It's almost like the rougher the terrain and the harder it is to get into, that's where they've seeked refuge. It's like that's where they've retreated to. And then going through stories that Kyle has done about the giants of North America, and then them being found buried with very diminutive people, 3 foot tall and under. It really makes you wonder if maybe because of their size, that maybe these small people or whatever they were, or if they are Fae, survived this whole time because of their size, and because it's easier to hide something that size than something so much bigger.
Yeah. I mean, they're depicted, like Cam said, like looking like a gnome. And the Dewindies especially, the Dewindies are popular like in Latin America, all the way down into South America. And they're always described as being really hairy, having impressive beards like Cam's. They're seen sometimes wearing hats, even smoking a pipe and carrying a walking stick.
Wow.
And like Cam said, they're often confused with being a raccoon or perhaps a rabbit or a badger. So I think that, like, if you're walking down a trail and they happen to see you, their first instinct is to try to like cover up, maybe, and you would just in passing would be like, oh, it's just a squirrel, man. And then only upon further investigation, you're like, wait, that's not a squirrel. That's oh my God, that's a gnome. That's a duende. But these stories, they span the world. They're all over. They're just called different things in different areas. Some places they're trolls. Some places they're imps. Some places they're gnomes. Some places, like Cam said, they're duendes. Even down in the Philippines, they have names.
How do we know that they're the same, just with different names?
Well, they're not all the same, but there are similar features described no matter where these things are seen. So you can have like a little troll that's seen in South America. You also see it in Europe. And then the same thing with the gnomes. Like, so even though they have different names, it seems like they're the same thing that's been seen. I was talking today with Cam, and I remembered a story. And the reason I remembered it is because we just got back from a mule deer hunt back in January in Arizona. And this particular story comes from a Navajo reservation up in Arizona. And this witness had written into our show, and she said she was at her grandmother's house with her family, and they were there. They were going to celebrate her mother's birthday. And at the house that they were at having this little get together. She described it as being out in the middle of nowhere. Now, if you're familiar with the reservations and stuff in Arizona, it's pretty remote. So I can only imagine in my mind, having been through that area, I know exactly what she's talking about. Out in the middle of nowhere, not on a city street or a suburb or anything. Anyways, she said they were having a good time. It was a joyous occasion. And about 10:30 at night, the dogs started acting crazy. They started barking, whimpering, and so they let them out, and they were going crazy. And they were uncontrollable, she said. Like they were, yelling at them and like telling them to sit her down, and they wouldn't. And she said it was really dark out. It was really dark. It was a moonless night, unlike tonight. And they couldn't see anything. Now, she didn't have a flashlight or anything, but they had a front porch light they could turn on. And the dogs were just still going like crazy, and they didn't know what to do. And so by this time, with all the noise and racket going on, the party's pretty much over. And she said she went out on the front porch, and she could still hear the dogs running around, and they were out of sight, but she could hear them snarling, and they appeared like they were chasing something, but she still couldn't see what it was. And she said as she kind of went around the corner of the house, something started to emerge like into her view. And she said what she saw looked like a little man jump from behind a tree onto the side of her grandmother's house. And she said it would scurry around like a lizard would, like the house was made of stucco. But she said this thing was able to stick itself to the wall, like imagine like Spider-Man, but little, like a foot and a half tall. And she said it was fast too, very fast. And she said by this point her dogs were going insane. And when she saw this thing, this little humanoid, she freaked out, she screamed, she ran in the house, and everybody else started peeking out the windows, and they kind of saw it too. And they were all scared. They're all terrified. They didn't know what to do. She said several of her cousins and young children that were there, they just kind of like hid under the bed. And the adults, nobody wanted to go outside. And they basically, she said, you could hear them. You could hear footsteps on the roof. You could hear the dogs, of course, still going crazy. You could hear walking around. They were making noise. And whatever, I don't know if it was an attack, but whatever was happening, she said it only lasted about 15 minutes. But they were terrified. So when the dogs finally settled down, the noise stopped. There was none of them that was brave enough that they were going to go outside and see. So they all just basically hid in the house till daylight. And when morning came, she said one of her uncles went outside and the dogs were hiding in a shed. They looked like they were exhausted and tired, but they were okay. And they started walking around the house and even got a ladder and went up on the roof. And there were hundreds and thousands of little tiny handprints.
Oh my gosh.
They looked just like a human's handprint, but tiny, like, size of a book of matches, maybe.
Oh
and
my
she said that they were like white, and it looked like, maybe they dipped it in paint or something. But her uncle later said, no, it wasn't paint. It was almost like chalk. And they never
So they had physical evidence also.
Little rock climbers.
Right. And so because, she was growing up on a reservation, and a lot of folklore, there's, they have a lot of traditions where they talk about, the skinwalkers. I'm trying to think of some of the names that they call the little people, because there are stories of like the little Indians. I believe Cam's told a story about the hunters. Now these, look just like a normal sized person, but very tiny. Think of Indian in the Cupboard, the movie.
Yes.
Like that. But that's not what, right. That's not what this woman was claiming. This woman was claiming these things were more gnome-like. Like, which, like the Travelocity gnome, like that, kind of like that. But
it's kind of crazy to think that they look like that, but then they are crawling around their home like a lizard. Mm-hmm. That's spooky.
Well, and the fact that it leaves little footprints, or handprints, because there's another tale that a fella tells. If you've ever heard the stories, there's a couple of different versions of what's called the Howler. The Howler can be considered, they have it named for a certain type of crypto creature, but it's also a name that some people give to these. They're like little evil gnomes, and that they come around the time or during a storm. There was a fella named Dave had talked about a sighting that he had when he was 10 years old, living with his family. And they lived in like an old farmhouse out like in Hudson Valley up in New York State. And that in the farmhouse, he was like, it's 100, 150 years old or whatever. He said it was a very old farmhouse. They lived there, and his grandmother had come to visit, and had stayed there with them for like a week or so, and said that there was a wind and storm had blown in on them. And while it was there, he said he started hearing this noise. And he said, I couldn't peg it, but it was one of those, and he's 10 at the time. He said it was one of those noises that just made your blood run cold. And he said it was this howling sound. And he said, man, he said he was downstairs. He slept downstairs. His parents slept upstairs. And he said that his grandmother was in the spare bedroom, because I guess he was probably sleeping on the couch or whatnot. Who knows? But Dave said that he got so scared that he went straight to his grandma. And he's like, Grandma, I don't know what this is, but I'm scared. So of course, he gets in there with Grandma, and Grandma's like, don't worry about it. It's just the wind. It's just blowing through something out there. There's no reason to panic. Everything's fine. He said, now I knew she was just kind of passing me over, trying to calm me down, because he's like, the wind does not blow through anything. You could tell it was physical, what was making this sound. And he said he could kind of tell that his grandma was messing around, but she hugged him up like grandmas do and snuggled up in the bed with him, and they went to sleep. He said, that was it. And he goes, now what was really bad is, he said, this noise started getting closer to the house. And he said it went on for like 15, 20 minutes out in the woods, closer to the house, closer to the house. He said, the next thing you know is it feels like it is right outside the window. He said, I'm shaking, and grandma's turned me away from the window and said, it's going to be fine. It's no big, and just kept downplaying the whole thing. So he said, finally, the wind, the storm passed, and all that sound stopped. Everything had gone away. And he said, so they fell asleep. He said he woke up early that morning, and his grandma wasn't there. She'd already gotten out of bed before he even woke up. So he gets up, he's going to go look for grandma, right? He's already freaked out. He said when he come outside, she was on the porch, the front porch of the house, and she was on her hands and knees scrubbing little muddy footprints. And when he said, I mean little, he said, I'm talking about like the size of a shoe, like a toddler, like a little 2T shoe would be on. And he said it was like little moccasins. There's no tread, but like you could see that it was like little moccasin feet in that mud that had left these tracks up there, and that she was scrubbing and cleaning it all off of there. And he said, I freaked out. And I said, Grandma, what made those? Said she would never answer him. She was like, you don't need to worry about it. And
protective
that was it.
Grandma.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
a protective grandma. Oh my goodness.
She knew what that was the whole time. But she's like, do not.
His grandmas know. They just know.
They do know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys on the edge of your seats now or what? That's just a few stories so far. We're going to take our first break of the hour. When we get back, there's more. And the second hour, we're going commercial free. So stay close. We'll be right back.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard. Available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
Please listen. Now is not the time to fear When your immune system is strong, shields up. You have very little worries. If your immune system is compromised, you're susceptible to all viruses. I say shields up and no fear. Try Heart Love from GetTheTea.com. Heart Love has a special ingredient called allicin. It comes from the healing part of the garlic plant. No garlic breath, no garlic leaking out your pores, just pure immune-building ingredients that gets your shields up. Heart Love is a unique blend of herbs that loves to build you up. Google garlic and know the benefits. One Heart Love pill is equal to 20 cloves of garlic. 20 cloves! Shields up. You've heard of our Life Change Cleansing Tea at GetTheTea.com. Now try Heart Love. And by the way, take your blood pressure and watch weekly what happens. So here's how to purchase. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com and build your shields. That's GetTheTea.com. Mention Ray in the coupon code and hit apply and receive free shipping.
Mainstream media's most wanted. KGRARadio.com.
Hello, welcome back to Soul Wanderings here on KGRARadio.com. I'm AJ Rasmussen, your host, and tonight we're hanging out with two really cool fellas, Kyle Philson and Cameron Hale. They are both the hosts of Expanded Perspectives. It is an amazing podcast that they created where they talk about all kinds of really cool things like UFOs and Bigfoot and Fae folk, like we're talking about the first part of the show. And we were talking about during the break, was it you, Kyle, that said I should make some cookies and put them out with my fairy houses out in the yard?
Yeah, that's a good idea because a lot of the folklore, no matter where you're at, Scandinavia, South America, doesn't matter. If you make offerings to the Fae, good things will happen for you. Your luck will improve, your crops, your gardens will grow better, your flower beds. I mean, even today, like if they're building a road in Sweden, like if they think that Fae folk are in that area, they'll build the road around the tree or around a large boulder rather than to disturb the Fae folk. So it's taken very seriously there.
There it is. I wish it was here because, wow, the world would be a different place.
Exactly. And, the opposite happens if you don't pay homage to the Fae. So if you notice them in and around your property and you're not offering them any treats or you're getting rid of their house, if you see a little structure built and you get rid of that, I mean, then they'll start causing trouble around your place, start being mischievous, and you'll start having ill fortune and bad luck and things like that. So, yeah, if you think you have any fairies or you just want your garden to grow and you just want some good luck, maybe bring some treats or some food.
I wouldn't start down that path because then they're going to be leaning on you, looking to try to milk some more money out of you for, air quote, protection. It's one of those guys shows up with his little gnome hair slicked back and a little nice fancy.
Could you imagine?
He's talking like Tony Soprano, but he's like 2 foot tall.
Oh my
He's gonna be
gosh.
asking for more cookies. You're gonna be like, "Look, bro, I thought I was doing the right thing." Next thing you know, you're haunted for the rest of your life. Great.
I still am going to share a cookie. I've been baking cookies for my son and sending them to him. He's in the Army, and I'm going to steal one of his cookies and put it out there. Thank you for the advice.
Even worse. All right. Don't come crying to me whenever you're on the list with the Fae.
Okay, Cam. I feel like it would be a good thing to do. But we'll see. I could be calling you crying.
And AJ, what's interesting is in all the folklore too, it's always talked about giving them a treat, but it's the opposite for them. Like you do not want to accept a food gift or drink from the Fae. That's what they tell you. A lot of the stories talk about. Right. If you partake in something that they offer you, you can be taken to their world and be never seen from again. There's stories like this that go back in cultures, which I think is odd because many different places all have similar stories, whether it's the boogeyman or the Baba Yaga it goes by many names. But for whatever reason, a lot of it was probably stories just to keep kids in line. You got to go to bed. Something bad will happen. You can't wander off from home too far or the Fae will get you. But there are even modern sightings up until today, even in like New England, I remember, where there's a Fae folk type creature called the Pukwudgie, and it's known to be a trickster. And there There was a guy a couple years ago, I remember we talked about on our show. I don't remember if he wrote in or we just were sent the story, but he was like out walking his dog at night and he started hearing something whispering to him from the woods. Like, come here, come here. And, he didn't know what it was. And then he finally saw the thing and, looked like a troll or something. And he always wondered, like, yeah, what would happen if I followed it? Because there's always stories. That's where all these missing hunters are and stuff. It's because they've fallen prey to the Fae.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
And there's tons of stories. I've read a lot of little articles here and there and on a few podcasts with people gone missing, and they really believe that they were taken by the Fae.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, there is we had posted some videos on YouTube. We post all of our shows up on there, and there was a comment under one of our little people stories about the gnomes or the Dwindy or whatnot, where a woman had said that her mother had told her about a encounter that she had when she was younger, whenever this woman was a baby, and that she said that they had like one of their old closets in the back, they had it open and they just kind of stored extra clothes and stuff in it, and that they had moved a bunch of the like a chest of drawers in there and used that for all the baby stuff and all that, just to kind of keep it not so cluttered and just in the back of the closet. And that the mom had the door open and was coming around the corner like to go get something out of the closet, and said that the mother described a little man in a dirty jacket, like a dirty blue jacket, little brown pants, little hat, real cherub cheeks, beard, but this kind of sinister little grin on his face. Said, come walking out of the shadows. Said this thing wasn't more than maybe 20 inches tall. Walked out of the shadows, holding its arms out, waving to the mother to give him the baby. Like, let me have the baby. And said all the mother could hear in like thinking was, it wants the baby and it's making the moves like, let me hold it. Let me hold it. And she's like, took off, backed up, took off, right? And was out of the house, and said, ended up going back in there. Nothing, of course, was in there, and they never saw it again. The mom's like, it was the only encounter that I've had with it. So, and there's all kinds of stories too from the past about these, they bring in the Fae will bring in like a bundle of sticks and try to swap it out for a baby.
Yeah, it was called a changeling.
The changeling.
A changeling, yes.
So it's not so out of the ordinary to think that something like that would come for a baby. I remember a story too that we had received about a fellow was talking about hiking, and was hiking with a group, was like a hiking guide. And I believe, I'm going to be talking out of school here. It happened. I believe it was when we were talking to Mr. Clellan, Mike Clellan, that did all the stuff with the owls.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was he that told the story, but I'm not for sure. That might have told us this. So if it's not, please forgive me. Don't hold it against him. But there was a hiking guide leading a group of people, and had like another person with them, like an assistant. And the assistant had gone on up like around the corner, I guess, to get stuff. I don't know what they were doing, but he was waiting at this one bend as the rest of the group came up, the main guide. So the assistant had walked ahead of him and had been gone maybe a minute or so. And then the rest of the group, there was like 5 or 6 more, had been coming up, another assistant in the back. And the guide said he was standing there at the bend of the trail. And right as he turned to take a couple of steps going towards the assistant, because he could make contact with the group behind him, he said a small, and he said, when I say small, like little, he's like 16 inches, not very big, gnome, just like you see, like the luminosity or whatever that Travelocity gnome, stepped out into the middle of the path with a little backpack and a walking stick, stepped out into the middle, like crossing it, hopped out in it, turned and looked at him, said, like, reacted like he can't believe he's being seen, hopped off in the grass. The dude runs up there, the hiking guide runs up there trying to find where it went off into the grass, can't see it, but said that there was like a little imprint, not really not enough to make a distinct track, but like you could see a little like a moccasined foot imprint in the dirt, just enough to where he said if you didn't know what had just made it, you would never see it. And so and Kyle and I even discussed it off air. If that's what they wear, you would never know they were around your house. They don't have enough weight to make a noticeable imprint, and you would never know they were there. They're not going to make any sound. They're not going to leave any tracks. It's something it plays to their advantage if they're creeping around your house.
And there you go, as if the yard wasn't creepy enough.
Yep.
Now they can go inside. They'll be in
Yep.
our homes.
Yeah.
No, actually, it sounds scary because it's unknown. But in all actuality, if one of us came across a fae folk of some kind, we would probably want to stick around and see what kind of communication we could have with them.
Yeah, but that's exactly right. There's a lot of people who have claimed to see these entities who aren't terrified or scared by them. They actually liked it, and they're like kind of bummed out that they haven't had that experience again. They kind of want to see them. I remember one of our listeners wrote in years ago that she kind of had an ongoing relationship with some of these fae when she was a little girl. She said she remembers when she was probably about 8, 9 years old. I don't remember what state it was in, but she shared a room with her sister, and I guess they had a night light or something on in the room, like lots of kids do, because they're kind of scared of the dark. And she would hear a little bit of a noise, and she would, like, with sleepy eyes, kind of dark in the room. She would look down, and she noticed that 3 little mice were in her room, kind of just milling around, smelling, sniffing the air. And she watched them for a few minutes, and then they scurried away. She didn't think nothing of it. About 3 days later, she awoke in the middle of the night. She heard some scurrying around again, kind of sat up in bed, looked around, and sure enough, there were the 3 mice. So the next day, she's like, I know what I'm going to do, because you see it on cartoons and movies and everything. She's like, I'm going to go get some cubes of cheese out of the refrigerator, cut them up real tiny, and I'm going to see if I can feed those mice. These will kind of be like my friends. So she laid out some cheese. Sure enough, that night or a night or so later, here come the mice again. They took the cheese. They really seemed to like it. They scurried off. So she began doing this. Well, she said about the 3rd or 4th time she was feeding these mice. Now they were on a schedule almost. She would get out of her bed and she'd be anticipating them coming. Well, this time when they came, what looked like mice starting to eat the cheese slowly changed before her eyes, and they weren't mice. They were little gnomes.
Mm.
And it became a problem because her mother would see the missing cheese all the time and be like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? She'd be like, I've been feeding my friends. And the mother would be like, what are you talking about? You're feeding your friends. She's like, yeah, the little guys, the little men, they come in my room and I feed them. They like the cheese. Well, the mother, thinking that her daughter was crazy, was like, well, next time they come, kind of wake me up or something. So they came, and the mom woke up, came in the room, and they all scurried off. And the mom was like, you got mice in here. And she's like, no, those aren't mice. Those are my friends. Those are the little people. And the mom didn't believe her. So her mom got some mouse traps. And according to the little girl, one night a mouse trap went off. And when she got up to look at it, it was one of those little guys caught in the trap. And she freed him, let him go. And she told him, like, look, you guys better get out of here. My mother, thinks that you're mice. And she never saw him after that. She said for a couple weeks afterwards, there would be some stuff missing from the shed. Some of her father's tools would be moved, a little bit of mischief, but not much. And she was actually kind of angry that her mom, ruined her fun with her little friends. And then, she kind of forgot about it. And now, of course, now she's fully a full-grown woman. But, yeah, she says, like, people think I'm crazy. They think that I imagined it. She's like, I didn't imagine it. It took place over a month and a half. I think that's a cool story. And just like Cam brought up earlier, it's like, I don't know if they're really good at camouflaging themselves. That's why people think that it's a mouse, or they think it's a raccoon or some critter, or they're somehow able to mess with your mind and make you think that's what you're seeing. Much like when he brought up the story by Mike Clellan, that's what reminded me of it. You hear the same thing when it comes to the Greys or extraterrestrials. People will think they see a large owl, and in fact, it's not an owl. They're somehow able to trick your mind into you thinking you're seeing something that's not really there. And it doesn't work on everybody. People that are mediums or people that are more sensitive to that type of thing, it may not work on them, where other people's dummies like me, I would never see it. I would just be like, oh, yeah, look, it's a squirrel.
Yeah, exactly. That's me all day.
An owl.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So now when I see owls or squirrels, I'm going to pay extra special attention to that.
I
I
think
didn't know that. I didn't know that they presented themselves that way. That's new information for me.
Well, that's what lots of the stories talk about that. And for whatever reason, lots of times children can see them where adults can't.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that trickles over into lots of other parts of the paranormal, where kids are somehow more sensitive to it.
Mm-hmm.
We had another woman, she wrote a story to us, and she said that this happened shortly after moving to a rural town in California. She didn't want to give the city. But she said one evening, she just moved into this place. She woke to a light tapping on her bedroom window, which she thought was kind of odd because it was in the middle of the night. She didn't have any children. There were no neighbors around, and that her bedroom was on the second floor of the home. So it wasn't like a person could be tapping on her window. So she said she went back to sleep, woke up later, continued hearing tapping on her window. So she went over to the window, but no one was there. She said she left the curtains open and settled back into bed again with the tapping still on her mind, and it started again. So this time she got up and wanted to see something, and she said that, this is her words, not mine. She says there in the window was the face of a tiny little man. He was just peering in at me. He had a little beard, it was pure white, and he had a green pointed hat sitting askew on his head. I would guess that he had only been around 2 feet high, which was baffling to me because I was on the second floor of the house. I just sat there, she said, totally astonished. She said the little man tapped on the window again and smiled at her. And she said she never got an evil or sinister feeling from him. He seemed almost like he wanted to play. He was very playful. Then he waved. He seemed to step away from the window. She says, I still don't know how he did that because there's nothing but a sheer drop to the ground. And he just went away. She said she was so curious. She went outside and looked again to try to find the gnome. He wasn't there. She just continued to look out that window on several nights up into this day. I don't know if she still lives there now, but never saw it again.
Wow. This is what is so amazing to me is you guys obviously hear a lot of stories. I hear some stories. But everyone shares these stories with such conviction, and there's so many things we don't know about in our universe that there's no way that we can just say no, that's not true. There's got to be some element of truth to every story you hear.
Well, and like we had discussed before the show even started, if it has an effect on that person, then it is just as likely as if it's proven to be 100% true. Either way, that effect lingers, whether it's real or not. And
right.
Like I said, it changes everything. We get a lot of stories also about people telling stories that their grandparents told them about these things. And I've received a bunch of them. Like we'll get them from Mexico and South Texas, where I was talking about the Wendy sightings. Have a guy that sent us one a few years ago that was talking about his grandfather. So this would have probably been, I'm assuming, back in the 30s or 40s in Mexico, lived and worked on a ranch. And that he had 3 brothers and 2 sisters, and they all worked there. So I'm assuming it was probably their place. But him and one of his brothers were working, and he said, we're, I guess looking for cattle or whatever they had. And they were down by the river. And he said that he heard singing, and he couldn't make it out, but he's like, it was singing. His grandpa kept saying that sounded like kids, like, not deep voices like men or even grown women. It sounded like children. And he looked, and at this time, the grandpa's like 14. And I think his brother was like 16. And so he and his brother, so he goes and gets his brother that's helping. He's like, come over here for a second. And they get over there and they both heard it. So they get down to a bluff on a river and lean out looking. And he said that they weren't probably 20 yards below them, what looked like he called them explorers. He said they had little dirty hats, little pants, little jackets, little packs, everything like they were, I picture kind of like little Indiana Jones guys, like little archaeologists running around down there. But he said there was 4 or 5 of them sitting around the edge of the water. They were sitting down, had their packs out, drinking out of like little cups, and were singing like they were having a good time. And his brother grabbed him and said, those are Dwendy, and we cannot let them see us. and pulled him back. And he said that the grandpa's like, I had never even heard of it. My brother's 2 years older than me, and he knew exactly what they were. And they grabbed him, and he said, we hightailed it out of there. And the whole deal, he's like, nothing at all. Now, he did say that his brother would never go down to the creek after that. He said he would go down there, but his brother, no matter what they were doing, would never go back down there after seeing him.
I wouldn't want to go back down there either.
Well, it's weird because you get like that. It's a toss up. Sometimes, like Kyle talked about the ones that look like little Spider-Men, like you're talking that run. Some of them are mischievous. Then you get some trying to steal babies. And then you get some that are just howling outside the window. And then you find some like we talked about. Kyle and I had a story one time, and I wished I could remember, but it was about they would see them in. Somebody said that they had seen a little gnome flying in like a little model plane. It looked like a little biplane.
No way.
And that they had seen it. And it was
somewhere
over
in England.
Yeah, somewhere
in Liverpool
Europe.
or something.
And that they had seen it. It was a very famous thing that they had seen these little things. We've even had stories sent to us where they've described the garden gnome in a sphere. So it looks like it's, I guess, steampunkish for none less. If you cut a basketball in half or a metal bowl like that, steampunkish looking, and then the top is glass. So it's a perfect sphere, but it looks like he's putting along in it, like from the Jetsons, just down around through the whole woods. I mean, the idea of just to even bring that up, that might be something you've seen, you sound insane to yourself.
Right, yes.
Like you're not going to believe that I saw an 18-inch tall gnome in a Jetsons mobile flying through the forest. Like people are like, yeah, bro, whatever you ate in there or smoked in there, you need to start selling because that sounds on point.
Well, you're 100% right. We talked about the smoking. I mean, it reminds me of the stories by Terrence McKenna.
Yes.
On psychedelics, Cam, if you would tell him, like when he was on those acid trips, he would talk about things he would call the machine elves.
Yeah. Well, he would get into like mushrooms. He would take a lot of mushrooms, him and his brother, Dennis. They would take what they coined was the hero's dose, which was 5 to 6 grams of mushrooms. And so they would ingest that on an empty stomach. And I believe they went down into South America and did nothing but eat psychedelic mushrooms for like 30 plus days. They lived on nothing but that and water. And there's some wild stuff. But Terrence would tell stories that you could get onto certain psychedelics. And he said that they would repeat. And he says what he means by that is he might not just have it, but somebody else that he had never spoken to could say the exact same thing. As he said, it was almost like you were looking through a film, and it was like you could see what he coined as the machine elves behind the scenes working.
Oh, wow.
That it was something that you knew. And Kyle and I have discussed this at length for years now, is the fact that we only have a handful of senses. What is out there that we can't see? Dogs can hear and smell what we can't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're actually very primitive, that the only thing that keeps us alive is our ability to think, like really to problem solve. That's the only thing that keeps us alive because we're not made or built or designed to be in the wild. We have to learn something. That's why you can't just take a baby and put it in the wild and it be okay. Yet you can throw a sea turtle out there and that sucker makes it in the ocean when it's 5 seconds old and it'll live 200 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a problem there. And I just wonder how many things that's there we can't see, especially when they start dabbling in these psychedelics and everybody reports seeing the same thing.
Yeah, I've always wondered that myself and even like different dimensions, like if they're in one dimension and every so often we just happen to see them, like that's what I believe with Bigfoot. But if we just happen to see them in some kind of glitch in the system somehow. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it makes
it's interesting because why aren't we just seeing all of the beings that there are at the same time that we are existing here with them? Or that we just not existing together? Is that what it is?
Well, and it could explain our fascination with these stories. All this stuff is
true.
To get to have that experience is a blessing, or is you've received something, and it's it's kind of like receiving the ability to have sight. If you didn't have it and you received it, oh my goodness, it's kind of like that. I'm with you. There's so many questions that it brings out when you have people that have never heard these stories or have never been in contact with someone and they have the exact same experience on the exact same thing.
Right.
Very, very, it's very strange. It's not scary. It's just intriguing.
Yeah.
It's something that you just like, I need to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, I think
It
you're
is intriguing. And if you're an investigator of any kind of curious mind or whatever that looks like, you're going to want to figure it out. You're going to research it and do all you can to have the experience again.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kyle, did I cut you off?
No, you're fine. I think I was just going to say, I think you're spot on with like the multiple dimensions, the multiverse. We know that that's a thing. I think you're 100% right that for whatever reason, when people are having these encounters with the Fae folk or perhaps Sasquatch or whatever, it's like for some reason the veil is just a little bit thinner and you get a glimpse into that other world and then it kind of goes away. I like the idea of the machine elves. I mean, like, can you imagine like little elves turning valves, moving gears, and it's like for a few seconds you could see that. It's like they're there all the time behind the scenes. We're just not able to perceive it. I like that story.
It is an interesting one, and I love the stories that really push you in a direction to use your imagination. Because you hear the story, and then if you're a visual person, which most of us are, if we're hearing a story, like you said earlier, we're imagining it in our minds, which is really neat when you say that, because everywhere I'm looking around right now, I'm imagining all of the mechanics and all of the things. And it kind of makes being a human more exciting, if you ask me.
Yeah. And, the sightings that we receive, I mean, these are coming from all walks of life, people that are professionals in their careers, not just, just wacky people sitting at home. I mean, like I know a pretty famous person who has commented to me privately about he was in his garden and saw what looked like Tinkerbell, like Cam was talking about earlier, whatever you want to call it, a sprite. And he said he felt at peace. He felt warm. He felt love. He felt happiness, and he loved it. And he's always wanted to see it again, but it's just never happened.
And that's a reoccurring theme. It's like people can see them when they get tuned into a certain frequency. And it's almost like when they're in the woods on a hike or just in nature in general, and you get at peace. Everybody knows that feeling, and you don't get to hold on to it that long, but you can feel it for a little while. Everybody that's had those in the woods or those experiences like that have reported having that feeling before they witness a lot of this stuff. And it's usually the ones that are good or just you catch a glimpse. Mm-hmm. So it's not like the ones that are mischievous. It's just those that you startle. It's like the happiness. That's what we were talking about. I remember just now bringing this up with Cleland, is that's what he had said. I believe it was him about the hiker, is that setting up there alone, waiting for the groups to get there, he was thoroughly at peace and happy. And that's when he turned and noticed that little thing out there.
Okay, I'm going to remember that. But I have that feeling quite often. I'll just be more aware of it when I'm out in the wilderness, which is going to happen this weekend.
Uh-oh.
I know, you guys, it's Labor Day weekend. Speaking of taking breaks, because that's what I'll be doing, we need to take one now. So we're going to take our last break of the show, which is awesome. We'll be commercial free the last hour. More time to hear stories from these two amazing fellas. So you guys stay close. We're going to come right back and hear some more.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 945-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. That's 945-882-7221. Or go to the website angioprim.com.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
The Liberator Rocket Heater will heat your home for free. The highly efficient Liberator Rocket Heater has no moving parts. It's safe and strong, constructed of quarter-inch steel. So like all things made in the USA, it's built to last. Uses any kind of wood, sticks, even scrap in its gravity-fed firebox. And it heats workshops, homes, garages, outbuildings, industrial areas, and barns. Watch the video of this blast furnace stove in action. Visit RocketHeater.com. That's RocketHeater.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Now you have the inside contact for alternative talk radio. The Planet. KGRARadio.com.
You are listening to Soul Wanderings on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, Salt Lake City, Utah, Hudson Valley, New York. Soul Wanderings can be found on all of the listening platforms, like you choose. We're all over the place, like iTunes, Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube. And all of my shows are available for replay on soulwanderings.com. If you're enjoying the show, I would really appreciate if you shared with your favorite people, because that's what you do for your favorite people. You share the good stuff. And I would love to have more people joining in and sharing their experiences with us, because we're having a great time, right? Right, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course.
So share. Sharing is caring. I'm so happy that you guys are here with us. Tonight we are hanging out with Cameron Hale and Kyle Philson, the hosts of Expanded Perspectives. And I'm pretty sure most people know who you are. You did have some time here on the station, and your podcast has been out for 7 years, you said?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's a fantastic podcast. In fact, I'm not saying I stalk you guys, but I do listen to every show you put out. I do enjoy the show, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, mostly like true crime and stuff like that. But you guys, great shows. I'm always entertained. I don't get bored. Some shows are you're like, okay, stop talking and talk about something else. But you guys, from the very beginning, you grabbed my attention.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So I appreciate the work and the effort and the time and all the things you guys do to put this information, put these amazing stories and out into the world. It's good stuff.
Well, if we weren't obsessed with this, we'd be obsessed with something else. So, I mean, it's not like we wouldn't be friends if we weren't doing this podcast. We would still be together, just obsessing over something completely different.
Right. You guys have been friends for so long.
It's been a hot minute. I've been hanging out with this guy.
Which is amazing. I think, like we were saying, any relationship takes work. And that's a lot of work. That's a lot of years to work on a friendship. So again, kudos. It doesn't happen very
I've had him
often.
so long now. What am I gonna? I can't do anything without him. So I'm just gonna be like, hey, I better holler at him next.
Yeah, it's be way more work to try to get a new friend. So at this point, it's just laziness that allows the friendship to continue.
That's right.
I've already heard every story and every experience that's ever happened to them.
He was there. Most of them. If they were a little out of control, he was there. So
yeah, I was a little wild when I was younger.
A little. Yeah, Godzilla was a little lizard.
See, this is why I love having you guys on. I knew I would laugh.
Yeah, we have fun, and that's the thing, even on the show. And like, we don't take ourselves super serious. Like, I'm not an author, I'm not a researcher, I'm not a cryptozoologist. Like, we just enjoy the stories and we have a good time. We don't take ourselves too serious. I think everybody can relate to sitting around a campfire and hearing an interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what keeps me interested, even 7 years later. Like, people aren't you going to run out of stuff to talk about? Or don't you ever get tired of hearing that? And you're like, no, everybody has a story to share, and I enjoy listening to them. Are some of them not as good as others? Well, of course, but I like the sightings. And every once in a while, man, you get some good ones, or you get some wacky ones. Video sent in to us, things like that.
Sound recordings.
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Some of them you get that are like, we get some that are highly disturbing. Like there's
like what do you mean disturbing?
Like too close for comfort interactions with either like a Bigfoot or other unknown cryptids or a dark entity. You'll get some to where it'll follow a family, and you will get a story, and they're like, well, I'm going to tell you this, but don't say anything about it. I just want to tell y'all this. And they'll send us an email, and then they're like, I'm going to get my mom to email. Then you'll get some random out of the blue mother will send you an email like, did she tell you that? And you're like, yeah. And then she's like, well, let me tell you some more. And then the mom will go to talking about it. Then you may get one from the sister, and you may end up having 4 or 5 family members confirming what had gone on 25 years ago at their house for like a week. And it's very, very disturbing. And it's one of those things that you're like, it'll follow the family. Like we've had stories to where a girl remembers seeing this thing follow her mother, and her mother tell the story of her being little and this thing being kind of attached to her all the way up until, the mom's in her 70s and still is like, yeah, there's still something sinister that I can still see and still have interactions with. Like this thing has been shadowing her whole life. And there's some stories that you get that, like they'll ask you, don't tell anybody. And you could easily change the names of it and go ahead and tell the story. But if you do that, you're kind of breaking the trust of that person. Is they like, I don't want you to tell anything, because it's real easy that they may have shared it with somebody else. And then that somebody else may hear it on the podcast and be like, oh, well, that's so-and-so's story. And then it goes in their friend circle, and then that whole thing falls apart. So you really, when they tell you, please don't, you really have to not. And so we have a file that sits there that's kind of like our 007 James Bond for your eyes only file. And there are stories in there that you're like, this would blow people's socks off. Well, I even thought, staying on the Fae, I really thought Doc was the story that he shared with me about the small Native Americans, I thought that was going to be one of those stories. When he finally told it, and his wife and all that I thought it was going to be one of those, now you can take that, but don't ever share it. I just wanted to get it off my chest. But and thankfully he wasn't, because I'm like, we have some other wild stories like that we can't share, that you were just like, oof, this, and if it's real, it's even, and I'm assuming it is, it's even the most, it's just some of those things that make you think about a lot of stuff differently.
Yeah, because, if someone's willing to share a story, but they don't even want it publicly read, it seems like an awful lot of work to just send an email for 2 guys to read, and that's it.
Yeah, for sure.
So also, when I get the sightings that seem less credible, it's like the people want to be showcased. They want the attention on them. Can you tell me, are you going to read my story? Will you tell me what episode you're going to read my story so I can tell my coworkers and my family to listen? Like, they want a lot of attention on them. To me, those stories seem less credible than the one where the people are like, hey, please, like, this is just for your eyes only.
Or you can share it, but just change the name, change a different name. Don't give my hometown, say it's somewhere in Indiana, say it's somewhere in Illinois, Say it's somewhere in Utah, but don't use exactly where it's at.
Right.
Why
And
do you think people are so worried? Just because of their reputation of being sane, or?
I think a lot of this comes from people that are of an older generation. When I say older, I'm talking Kyle, I would say our age, in our 40s and older, that we're still not used to, and I'm speaking on like behalf of maybe my mother, things like that, my mother-in-law, aren't used to the freedom of information so much now, and they believe that somebody's going to be able to find something out about them. And so they don't want to be tied to it, but they also want to share their story with someone and even share it with other people. But I think it's one of those that it's almost like being afraid of nothing, but it's being afraid of technology and afraid that somebody's going to find out. Like it would be, I could right now tell you a story, and I could even say it took place in your town, and I could use a name and use a few familiar streets, and you'd be like, I know exactly where that's at. And it could be totally false because there's so many people that live there.
Mm.
But those people that send these stories to us don't think that way. And the reason is because they've had this encounter. They already have what they considered their safety zone breached by something that they couldn't even wrap their mind around hours before it happened, would completely blow it out the water. And then they have this experience. Now they have all this stuck on them, and then they carry that experience for years, and they've tried to open up about it, and they've received a little ridicule, so they've kept it quiet. And so they're willing to share the story, but that's all they're willing to share. So they don't want to get that out because they believe that it might end up putting the spotlight on them, that you might take it, tell that story. They might be approached. There might be more researchers. Next thing you know, it's going in a book. I need to talk to you. Would you go on record? And you didn't want any of that to happen. And so we completely respect whoever sends the story, that if we're going to use it, we want to talk to you about it. You send it in. If you say in the email when you share the story or message or whatever that you do not want it read on air, we don't read it on air. If you say you do not want it use our name, we don't use your name. Anything that you request, we will not share, but we will share the story if it's allowed. Yes, that's it. That's the way you have to do it. Otherwise, you lose credibility with the listeners because they're not going to want to share any of this stuff with it. And like Kyle brought up, so many of people have had these encounters that there's more people that have had something strange. If you really sit back and think about it, no matter how hardcore skeptic you are, there's something that's happened in your life that you really can't explain. And if you've never had something, you're not paying close enough attention to your life. So somebody has always had a little something nagging at them, whether when they were 8 years old or 80. In between this time, that hash mark on your headstone, in that little hash mark, you've had something strange happen to you at least once.
I agree. I don't know how you could go on and have this entire human experience and not have something happen that kind of blew your mind.
I saw somebody had posted something that goes along the idea of that. And it made me laugh when I read about it, but then I started really thinking about it. And it was along the lines of, what if when you die, you open your eyes and you're an alien species holding a bong surrounded by your friends, your alien friends, and your buddy goes, did you feel it?
Mm.
It makes you think, how come, we don't even know, not to even get off on those subjects, but we don't even know what reality truly is. Like we try to believe we know, but we just brought up the machine elves.
Well,
we have no idea.
And that's why I think people try to discredit people's stories. They somehow it makes you feel safe and secure if you think that we know everything. Like that's impossible. That can't happen. We know everything. Where in reality is like, we probably don't know a lot of stuff. So why couldn't that be real? And we've had people contact us like, how are you vetting these sightings? I'm like, well, we're just going off intuition. If we were to really just start hating on every sighting that was sent to us, we probably wouldn't have many sightings sent to us, and then we'd no longer have a show. That's not the point of our show.
Right.
We're trying to share people's stories, their experiences, and kind of like Cam brought up earlier in the day, it doesn't matter whether the experience was real or not. It was real to that person. So that person, whether they saw a gnome or a UFO or whatever, their life is forever changed. So to me, it doesn't matter. The result is the same.
Do you ever hear any stories that you, regardless of what you just said right there, but do you ever have any stories where you feel there's no way this is believable, this is not real?
100%. Yeah, we get those. You get them, and like Kyle said,
We just don't usually talk about
you just don't
those.
even bring it up. You'll receive them, and you're just like, some of them slip through the cracks. We get a bunch of them. Some of them we can't get to, but we do get. But it's what's weird is it's not a lot. Of course, for all we know, every story we received is true, or every story we received is fake. We can't vet it. You can't. But like Kyle said, going off the intuition is you kind of go into it open-minded, but you can, when you've done it long enough, you can kind of sniff out, like he said, some little things throughout the story that just don't add up. And it's not like it can be multiple paragraphs of poorly written, poor spelling, everything, but the story makes sense. And you can feel like, oh, okay, yeah, this is something. Then you can have some that are perfectly written, and still you're like, yeah, this really smells fishy. Like something feels like, again, like they're making things a little too grandiose. Like there's the high points that normally should be in these stories aren't adding up.
Right. And like Kim said, a lot of the stories that are sent to us are from other parts in the world where English may only be their second language. So,
or they may, Google Translate, it's not working right. I mean, you don't ever know.
But yet they send in an interesting story. And like Kim said, is, everybody's had somebody tell them a story, whether it's a friend or a friend of a friend or a coworker, where like halfway through their story, this person's lying, but you just go along with it because you don't want to be rude. You're like, yeah. Then later you're like, there's no way that happened. There's no way that happened. And so, I mean, I've met people at conferences who have pulled me aside and told me something, like Cam said, that they didn't want to share. And just their expression on their face, their demeanor and everything, I believe it. There's an old farmer I used to work for when I was younger, not too far from here. He's not into the paranormal at all. In fact, he never shared his story with me until he found out about the show. And he had a strange sighting of what sounds like an upright, hairy hominid in his pasture. And he saw it one time, never saw it again, and he never really mentioned it again. But I for the life of me, I don't know why like a 78-year-old man would just feel the need to make that up.
Right.
This 78-year-old man in particular.
Yeah. I mean, why would someone want to make something like that up? Because it isn't the norm, and you will get criticized for it.
I will tell you I'm going to shift gears off the Fae, and I'm going to tell you a quick Bigfoot story that is kind of along this line. Is we had spoke to a Bigfoot researcher that had done a lot of gathering, and investigating all through Texas. And we had talked to him, and we'd talked to him several times. And he had a story that was shared not far from where we're at. I would say he wouldn't give us the exact details, but within a couple of hours of where we live today in Texas, which is in Parker County where we live. And he told the story that, again, a woman had called him up or contacted him through email because she said her husband had a sighting of something and he wasn't willing to discuss it. And she said, of course, it was affecting him and she needed, she wanted him to report it. And I don't really know if she had contacted him for her husband or if she contacted him because the husband wouldn't. And she just, kind of like an intervention. She's like, we're going to have a sighting intervention on this guy. So she brought him in and finally got the husband talking about it at the table. So they were sitting at the table, but the story goes is he was actually hunting one fall and one winter, and he was out there rifle hunting, and he was setting up watching a feeder, and he was going to shoot some pigs. And he said the hogs had come in and was feeding under the feeder. And he noticed something. This was at dusk, and he notices something under some cedar trees. And he said at first he thought it was just a big pig, and it had gone on to end up this thing leapt out from underneath the trees, grabbed one of the pigs, killed the pig, and carries it off. Just jumps out, grabs it, smacks it one time, picks it up, runs off with it. And he described it as looking like a real lean, athletic gorilla. He said it was much taller than a gorilla, but built with the same shoulders and arms, same no neck, longer legs. But he said this thing was shaggy and brown, and it leapt out. He said probably 10 or 12 foot, just one leap off of all fours on its hands and knees, and its feet dug into the ground. It pushed off, jumped on that pig. So what he described was about a 7-foot tall Sasquatch that killed this hog and run off with it.
Oh,
and the old man straight up told the guy, he was like, that's the story. That's pretty much all I'm telling you. And, that's it. I don't want you. And so that's why he could never give us the name. He could never give us anything. And he would just vaguely say, it's within 2 hours of here, guys. And we have received, again, stories like that where guys had seen things in the woods hunting. Like it became a big deal. One of my favorite stories is about a Sasquatch sighting, and Wes at Sasquatch Chronicles is the guy, I believe, that posted it when I first read it. This has been years ago. It had happened in Arkansas where a bow hunter had gone out, was hunting a new place, usually sets his stand up at a certain height. So when he set a lock-on stand up in the trees, if you're going to bow hunt, of course, the higher up, the better it usually is. It's better for scent, and it's more out of the animal's, view. So it's easier to get a shot at him. And he said at this point where he was at, this dude that had called had this encounter, couldn't put it where it was at. So he could only get up a certain ways or couldn't put it the height that he wanted. So he was only about 12 foot off the ground. So he said he came in early in the morning, of course, to get in his stand. And by the time he got back in there, he said it looked like somebody had moved it, like it had been twisted, like the bottom was turned one direction, the top was turned another. So I'm assuming it's like a climbing stand. And by a climbing stand, it's two-piece. And you actually climb it like you see those guys use a strap and spikes when they climb a utility pole, except it kind of works in unison with the top and the bottom. They're not connected. So you don't have the spikes and the strap. The stand works as that. So he had gotten up there and I guess set him some climbing sticks and got down and just left it climbed up. But either way, it was all jacked up. So the guy said he had to spend the morning getting it resituated in the dark. Finally gets in his stand. He said he hears something coming in behind him. He's got his bow in his lap, arrow nocked. He hears something coming in behind him. He thinks it's pigs. He said it's just about 5:30 in the morning where you can make out a glow where he was at just from a little enough light in the sky. He can see these shapes, and he realizes these shapes aren't pigs. They're way bigger. So then he's like, maybe it's cows. Like, what are cows doing out here? It's not that. He said at this moment, while he's thinking of that, a big black hand, shiny black hand that he described what looked like a primate's hand, reaches up and grabs the broadhead. When I say broadhead, it's a razor sharp hunting head that you use on your arrow to harvest game. And he reaches up this hand, and now mind you, this dude's sitting 12 foot, reaches up and grabs the broadhead because it can see it shining in the light because the arrows are black or camouflage, and this broadhead is silver. So what moonlight or whatever light's showing is glimmering off of that, and it grabs it and then releases it and starts roaring like crazy. Just whatever this thing is screaming. Now, the guy points out, he said, I thought it was a gorilla because of its palms. The palms, he said, I could see as it come in were black because they were shiny. Of course, it's not bright enough to really see all the color. But he said this thing starts squalling, and he starts yelling at it. So he's like, screaming back down, like, because it scared him so bad. He just starts screaming. He said this thing takes off. Whatever's with it takes off. He said, I'm sitting there trying not to lose control of my bodily functions. He said, I have to wait for several minutes, and then he gets out of there. And that was his whole encounter. Now, it never talks about if he took the broadhead to have its blood. Every time people bring that up, did he take its broadhead to have its, at that point, you can't really fault him for not following the proper chain of custody and to save that broadhead for DNA testing. You're just looking to get the hell out of the woods. That's all you're looking to do at that point.
Right.
So I'm sure if he didn't drop the arrow, if it didn't come off the string and him drop it and leave it, when he put it in the bow quiver or the arrow quiver on the side of the bow and took off back to the truck, that, of course, compromised everything. But either way, there are tales of these bow hunters encountering the Sasquatch like that. And it's.
Did you imagine?
No.
You guys go hunting a lot. What would you do?
I actually had a guy on a deer lease that I hunted on, had a sighting, and he quit hunting because of it. And it happened during one spring turkey season. And I've told the story is this guy had a sighting. He saw something at distance and said it was pushing its way through the cedar trees. And he knew those cedar trees were above his head, and it was hitting this thing under the armpits as it walked through these trees. And he watched it, had his rifle leaned up, shotgun, everything. He's big hunting. I mean, he can shoot whatever he wants. He's glassing it with binoculars and watches it clearly, he said, for probably a minute or two before it went off into this bottom. And he got all of his stuff out of his stand, climbed down on his four-wheeler, drove back to camp. We had all gotten there. He started loading stuff in his truck, wouldn't talk about it. We finally got him to open up and talk about it. And he had told us what he saw and that he would never be back. And he was like, y'all can laugh if you want to, but I know what it was. And when he got home, over the course of time, he sold every bit of hunting equipment that he had. Sold his guns, sold his bow.
Done.
He sold all of his fishing gear, his boat. He got rid of everything. Now, he passed away from cancer several years later, 8 or 9 years later, I believe. And but still, to that day, he never did. He never went back into the outdoors to do anything. His whole thing, and he never would talk about it. He told everybody that stuff one time. He never brought it up. He just played it off like, I'm just done with it. I'm over. I mean, he would, make up. He did not want to discuss it. I wish I would have had the show then to actually have him record him talking about it and have him feel comfortable enough to tell it. But all his whole thing is there are things out there that you can't imagine and that you couldn't stop if you wanted to. And he just left it at that. But yeah, he was done.
Yeah. Sounds like done, like done.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who, I mean, you guys take it pretty seriously. You get all your gear. It's a big investment. Hours of research and time spent out there.
Our whole life.
Yeah. And to just give it all away.
Yeah.
It had to have been something pretty life-changing.
To be a successful hunter, I mean, it's a lifestyle. I mean, you have to be all in.
Yeah, it's not a hobby. It's not that's what you do. You're a hunter.
And you were talking about hiking earlier. That's the reason I enjoy hunting, is because I'm not successful all the time. So basically I'm hiking with just carrying a bow, but I enjoy being in the outdoors. I like to sit outside in the woods and watch the birds and the animals. Like it's peaceful for me.
So good. Yeah.
Such a hectic work week with phone calls and emails, and it's nice. No, I have 3 kids. So they're not running around screaming. It's nice to just get outside and enjoy that. But back to Sasquatch, I've thought about it many times while sitting in a stand or walking to it when it's dark out. I'm not going to lie. I've heard sounds and been scared. Nothing that I think was Sasquatch, just any old sound scares me. But we had a guest on about a year ago or maybe 8 months ago. And this is one of those cases where I love these kind of stories where the people are 100% against something. And then over time, through their experiences, they become completely convinced that it's real. This guy wrote an excellent book. His name is James Patrick Aiken. He goes by Pat, and he wrote a book called Elkins Creek. And we had him on the show to talk about his experience. And now where this took place was in rural Georgia. He was a sheriff's deputy, and he worked in a real small town. I think he said the town only had a population of like 3,000 to 4,000 people. And he would often work the night shift, driving around in a patrol car, just answering calls. Nothing major. It's not a major city. There's not like real crime. It's just somebody's hitchhiking here, somebody's loitering here, something. But he said he got a phone call one night through the dispatch that, I don't know, he didn't use the actual old couple's name. Let's just call them the Smiths. He got a call from the dispatcher saying that the Smiths had a reported burglar or someone snooping around on their property. So he said, okay, I know where that is. And he said it's about a 25-minute drive on an old, like dark gravel road to get back to their trailer where they live, their mobile home. And he said they were elderly. They were like in their 70s. And so he showed up and, of course, started shining the spotlight around and didn't see anything. And he went up and knocked on the door. And the old couple met him. And the woman had like a little chihuahua or something was her pet. And he said that thing was pretty fierce. It always barked. But
they're so mean.
Yeah, they are. My brother had one. And he said, so when he talked to him, he's like, what's going on? I got the call that, somebody's prowling around. They're like, yeah, somebody's been prowling around our property, beating on the side of our house. He's like, what? It seemed kind of odd for someone to be out here in the middle of nowhere, beating on the side of the house. So he said he, walked around, did a perimeter check with his flashlight, didn't see anything, said, hey, look, if anything like this happens again, just call me and I'll come back out here. He said, well, so he left. And a couple weeks later, same thing, same time, like 3 a.m., 2 a.m., dispatch calls. Hey, the Smiths said they got that prowler out there again. Oh, he went out there. This time he pulled up. He said he noticed an odd smell. It smelled like rotting garbage. And he knocked on the door. Same kind of thing. They said there's somebody prowling around, beating on the side of their house. And he said he heard the woman like kind of get on to her husband, like, tell him the rest. And he was like, no, go back in the house, woman. Don't worry about it. And she's like, no, tell him the rest of the story. So the guy was like, yeah, okay. He's like, there's been something, messing around on our property, and it's not just beating on the side of the house. It's been peeking through our windows at night. And the deputy sheriff said the first thing he noticed were the windows were pretty high off the ground. Like somebody would have to be 8-9 foot tall to even look through the windows unless they were standing on a step ladder or box or something. And he said, and he was describing to the sheriff this thing looking through the windows, and the old man told him, he's like, well, it's not a man. And he said the deputy was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I don't know what it is, but it's not a man. It's not a person. So, of course, the deputy, Patrick, he thought the couple was crazy. So this went on for a while, and he would be called back out. So he started getting interested. Now he said he was kind of getting annoyed. He was getting mad because somebody was screwing around and messing with this old couple. And he was going to get to the bottom of it. Well, he started looking in and around the property down, and there's a creek. Elkins Creek, so the name of the book, down in the back. And when he went back there one day, he found a set of giant footprints. So they look like human footprints, only massive. So he, took plaster casts of the thing. He started seeing more evidence, like a crudely made structure, if you will, like survivalists would build, like a nest made of leaves. Like he started seeing all these things. And over time, he began to realize that this couple wasn't making this up, and that whatever they were seeing, there's a lot more clues I'm leaving out, of course. I don't want to give away the whole book. But he became completely convinced that this wasn't a man, and that, he started doing more research. And he absolutely today is convinced that it was a Sasquatch, in fact, on these people property. And he said going into it, he thought all those stories were ridiculous. So I like it when someone can tell their story and you can see the whole arc from non-believer to believer.
Yes, I love that. That's when like there's no doubt without having any evidence or proof or anything. You just know that it's real.
There's another story when it comes to Bigfoot, and I'll let Cam tell it because he's better than me. Have you told them the Gary Christensen story?
Yes, that was the first story that I had told.
Did you?
Yeah, that's my favorite Bigfoot story. The whole story. It's my favorite Bigfoot. I think it's yours too.
Yeah, because, for years, these people thought that they had really had an experience, and it turns out it was a hoax.
Yeah, the whole time.
Can you believe that?
Well, that goes back into what we've discussed. It still affects you the same way.
It does. Yeah. It does too. It has an effect on you one way or another, regardless. It really does. That's what's so neat about the unknown is the way that it affects you. Well, some people have a hard time with it, but overall, the experience, just having the experience.
Yes. Real quick, this is kind of going backwards, back towards the Fae, but I just wanted to bring up real quick. You've seen, I'm sure almost everybody listening to this has seen the movie Gremlins back in 1980.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the little Mogwai named Gizmo. So
cute.
Right.
Cute and freaky.
And, right. What was there was 2 rules. Like, you don't want to get them wet. If you get them wet, they multiply. And whatever you do, don't feed them after midnight or they turn into these like evil reptilian monsters known as gremlins. But what a lot of people don't know is that movie was actually based upon alleged real entities from World War II.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah. I did some research on this years ago, and the true origins of the name gremlins comes from the Old English word grem, which means to vex or to annoy. And much like the Fae we were talking earlier, these stories of these real gremlins were the same thing. They were tricksters. They were mischievous. They were malicious. They liked to cause trouble, kind of like they were portrayed in the movie. I remember when they were like hot wiring and messing with the guy's tractor.
Yeah.
There's all these stories that come from World War II where there's these gnome-like imps or demons. That's what they called them then. They didn't really call them gremlins then. They were supposedly really good craftsmen, skilled craftsmen. They had a knack for working on all types of machinery, and they would cause mischief. They would be seen sitting on the wing of planes, tearing stuff up. Everybody's probably familiar with the Twilight Zone episode where there was something sitting on the wing, tearing up the plane. Apparently, like, this stuff was really happening to a few of these British airmen who reported that while they were there on long flights, these creatures would show up. They'd mess with the landing gear. They would mess with the dials and gauges. They would rig with the flap. They were messing with the flaps. The very first story came from a British newspaper called The Spectator. This was in somewhere, I don't remember exactly what year, but they were talking about how there was a story in there, and they were talking about these inexplicable mishaps that were happening to this group of crewmen, and that there was these little horde of mysterious, malicious sprites, they were called in that article, that were causing all this trouble. And you can look all this stuff up on the internet. But what I find really interesting is probably the most famous gremlin encounter actually happened to the American aviator Charles Lindbergh. Now, he was on a historic nonstop flight. Everybody knows about this, from the Atlantic, from New York to Paris in May of 1927. And it was a long journey. It was going to take 33 hours to fly there. And Lindbergh himself reported that 9 hours into his flight, he started feeling detached from reality. And he said he found himself surrounded by several strange-looking troll-like beings within the cramped confines of his tiny little cabin. And he said that they spoke to him, and they demonstrated incredible, complex knowledge of navigation, of flight equipment, and unlike these other cases with mischief, Lindbergh said that these gremlins actually kept him alert. They reassured him, and they kept saying that he would be safe on his journey. And later, of course, he didn't talk about it when he first landed, but later when he wrote his book in 1953 called The Spirit of St. Louis, of course, named after the airplane, he actually talked about how if it wasn't for these spirits or gremlins or whatever that he was seeing there, keeping him alert and helping him along the way, he doesn't know if he would have survived the flight.
Really?
Yeah, and I find that interesting. I did not know that until just a couple years ago. Stumbled upon it.
And the really unique thing to me about that story is people at first, when all this started coming out, I remember reading that all their comments were, well, undoubtedly he was suffering from like hypoxia. He had gone too high. Maybe his oxygen wasn't working.
Yeah,
right.
of course.
But the problem with that story part is it happened 9 hours into the flight of a 33-hour flight. You'd be dead, or something would vary. If you started suffering from that, you would have to drop down, everything would change. All of the stuff would change if that's what it was. And then once you got down or your oxygen started working again, they would go away. They would vanish. He doesn't talk about that. And again, like Kyle and I have discussed this too multiple times, is it's funny that the gremlin stories on planes started in Europe. So it wasn't here in the States, wasn't here with the Wright brothers. It wasn't here with any of that. It was in Europe where it starts, where the Fae stories are a little heavier than they are here.
Yeah, that is something that I've observed myself, is that they are much more, I don't know if they just talk about them more or if they have more history there or what that is, but there are definitely more stories coming from that part of the world.
Yeah, and these gremlins that were seen throughout World War II, their descriptions kind of vary, but they're all, some things that are similar is that they're all elfish looking. They say that they look similar to humans. They are seen wearing bright red or green double-breasted frock coats. They're often seen wearing old-fashioned hats with feathers, pointed shoes. Their skin colors vary from green to gold to pink. Other stories say that they look animalistic, hairy bodies, large pointed ears, deep red or even glowing eyes. Some even have horns, and they all have enormous mouths filled with pointy teeth. What's helping them along, though, it's kind of like, I don't know, they like cheering for Charles Lindbergh. They see that he's like starting to pass out, and they just come into this dimension, help out, go back.
I like to think this. I like to think that they were stowaways, and he knew that they couldn't see him. And when he started having these problems, they're like, look, we're going to have to help him out or we're all going down. And so they decided to all pitch in and like, we got to get there.
That's a good way to look at it, too.
Yeah, they were trying to get to Paris.
Yeah. It's so neat, though.
To get home.
Yeah. And the stories are, they're helpful to people that are on a journey. It kind of reminds me of like the Third Man Factor. Are you aware of those stories?
I don't think so. No.
Third Man Effect. This is, it's kind of like Guardian Angel, where like, say somebody's on, I don't know, hiking a mountain in the Himalayas, and it's terribly cold and they're low on oxygen. And if they stop, they're going to die. They're going to become hypothermic. They're going to die. But like all of a sudden they feel a presence and they feel warm. And there's another hiker there with them that's on the rope. And they're like, come on, we got to go. You can't stop. We got to push. We got to push. and they keep pushing, and this person that's with them is helping them through the storm. And then when they finally get back to the base camp or whatever, they look behind them to find out where the hiker is. They want to thank them, and there's no one there. There never was anybody there. It's called the third man effect. And there's lots of cases where people are in dire situations and someone comes and helps them. I wonder if these fae that are coming along and helping people are part of the same thing.
Or if those people that are coming along the third man factor are in fact fae themselves, but they have to present themselves in a way that they know that you will not question.
Right.
They have
to, just like the Greys do.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that brings in a whole nother subject is maybe none of that stuff's really there because we're in some sort of simulation, and it's the simulation doing it all to us.
That's another idea.
I'm telling you, pull
There's so
little
many.
thread.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I can just off the top of my head, I can remember another case where a guy was like an adventure seeker, snowboarding or something up in the mountains, and he got caught in an avalanche, and he broke both of his legs. He was, severely injured, and miles away from his car, and he was there basically just like bleeding out in the snow, dying. He knew he was, there's no way he's gonna be able to make it back to his car and civilization, and all of a sudden, like an EMT just like kind of showed up out of nowhere, started telling him what to do. Wrap your legs, put a tourniquet on your left leg, tie it like this. Come on, we can crawl. I'll help you. We'll get out of here. And, finally made it back to the parking lot where his car was. Some people found him. They took him to the hospital. Days later, when he came to, he was like, well, I just want to, can you please tell me who the guy was, that the EMT that helped me? I want to thank him. It wasn't for him, I wouldn't have made it out of there. And they're like, what EMT, bro? What are you talking about?
It
They're
does
like,
sound like a guardian angel, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. They're like the guy that helped me.
Like, it's not your turn to go. We're going to help you get through this. This wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah, you made a mistake.
Right. So there's several theories on, is it, like you're saying, is it a guardian angel? Is it a past loved one coming to help you, a friend? Or when you're in dire situations and things are bad, does your own body, your own mind release endorphins that makes you think that there's somebody there giving you advice, that it's really just a safety mechanism activated by your own mind? I don't know.
A possibility. That's something else I was thinking of when you were sharing the story. That is crazy if you think about it. There are so many possibilities to all of these experiences.
Mm-hmm. That's why
I wonder when we find out the truth.
Hopefully.
I don't want to know it.
No, I just mean in
like
general, like this life, next life, whatever that looks like. I wonder when it happens. I wonder when they say this is what's going on. Because it's interesting.
I don't know.
Well, at least one of the things we always say is, like, when we started, I thought that with years of research and listener participation that we would find some answers to some of this stuff that I didn't know. And I can tell you now, 7 years later, we're more confused. I have more questions now than when we started. I know Cam's the same.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't learned anything. Only more questions.
I've learned that none of it, that just when you think you have a grasp on something, it gets even more slippery and you lose it. And it's like that every single topic that you cover.
I could see how that would be a thing.
Well,
because every story, there's just more. There's more questions, like with every experience, because you get more information. So you have more of those questions.
And it's human nature to try to categorize and try to put in a box and try to name everything. Like, we have to have a label on everything. Doesn't matter what it is. It can't just be a mystery. Right. That can't be. We have to know what this is. And it's literally like it knows it. And the harder you work to find it, it just keeps it right. It just dangles the carrot right out in front of you to keep you chasing it. And you just have to finally accept that you're never going to know. You just have to look at all this cool stuff and try to absorb it for what it is. Kyle and I discuss the missing people all the time. The hunters and the hikers that go missing without a trace, just vanish, where they look and look and look, and then they'll find them right where they've looked a dozen times. They've walked all through this area, through this field. It's been checked. It's been marked off. And then they find their body. And you're like, well, where did they go? Where did they come from? And then you hear these stories about people in other dimensions that can see, like you've fallen through the veil. So
Mhm.
then when you think about falling through the veil, it makes the stories of Bigfoot, of Sasquatch, of the Fae, all of these things, more natural ideas that we have. It makes that seem even more possible because it's like maybe they live behind that veil, and that's how they can come and go a lot faster. And that's how we lose all the the tracks of them. We lose everything about them other than just a visual sighting.
Right. And a memory.
Yeah, that's, I mean,
And there I go being human saying, oh, when are we going to find out? How are we going to
Yeah.
know?
and it's natural. Everybody wants to know. And I was always under the impression, and Kyle and I've always joked about it, and you'll see it on bumper stickers and things, is you were born too early to explore the planet, too late to explore the planet and too early to explore space. So when you have this adventurous attitude and this adventurous soul, these are the things that you look after. You look after what's in the outdoors. You see these guys that started calling them back in the 80s and 90s, these adrenaline junkies. That's all they are, is explorers. They're just exploring where they're trapped at this moment. But that is feeling. You either have it or you don't. And everybody has a part of it. And it's just bigger in some people. And I think that that's a lot to do, like what you're saying, is people, you want those answers. So you chase these stories and you chase these stories. But at the end of the day, you're never going to have it. And once you kind of make peace with, there needs to be mystery in this world, or it would be awful plain. Like if we knew everything, how boring would that get? Because if you don't think it would, do this simple experiment this weekend. Watch the same movie starting Friday night, and you can't watch anything else till Monday morning. Everything that you're going to put on your TV, everything that you're going to listen to on your phone, everything that you're going to have playing through your radio, it has to be that movie on repeat till you're intimately aware of everything in that movie. You'll never watch it again. Well, why not? You already know all the answers. That's what you wanted. Now you know the answer. That's the way human life would be. If we knew all the answers, you're going to be bored with it.
Right.
So there has to be mystery, or you go crazy.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. You would be bored out of your ever living mind.
Yeah. That's why the greatest torment for a human being is solitary confinement. The greatest fear would be locked in a soundproof black room where there's no light. There's no outside stimulus. It's just you. And that's when I get back into those whole float tanks. People need to experience the float tank because little bits of that are great for your psyche. And then it allows you to relax and unlock your mind.
Talked about that before.
Yeah.
That it just blows my mind. Our minds are, I keep saying blows my mind because really it blows my mind, but our minds are so expansive.
Yeah.
And even if we had an experience, we could embellish it and believe it was completely 100% accurate anyway. So no matter how we share the story, there's always going to be a different truth, regardless if you think you found the truth.
Oh, 100%. I mean, look at the stories that you get of firsthand experiences. And then there's two people there that didn't know each other, saw the same thing, and they may see two completely different things because it's how they're experiencing this life. And their life experiences up until that point is what they're using to gauge what some person might think is scary. Another person thinks that's their happy spot. That's the place that they're the happiest. I mean, I experience that. I do not like the ocean. I love to fish, but I'm not getting in it. And there are other people that they can't wait to get in it. And I call it monster soup, and that's their happy place. So that same, if you think of that same mentality, it's the same with any kind of experience. And that goes back into what Kyle and I were talking about when you start reading through these stories. You read enough of them and you go into it with that mindset, you can start seeing a lot of threads that connect, a lot of stories that line up. And you can see how it works together. And then you can also see whenever the cog doesn't fit, that's the one that starts making you go, either this is something we've never looked at or this person's making it up just to try to get on the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just either way. I mean, what a good time for you guys.
Oh, we love it.
Yeah,
it shows. It really does.
It's a blessing. It's worked out far better than we ever anticipated. Like literally when we started, we didn't think we would be doing it. Probably a couple weeks. No one's gonna want to hear from me and Cam. They're not gonna like it. So when people started listening, we were like, "What?" And now looking back, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Looking back, what do you what do you guys see for yourself going forward? Do you see this being a long-term thing, or until it's not fun anymore, or what does that look like for you?
I see it being probably a long-term thing simply because I don't have but maybe, well, I have less than, let's see, what would that be? I've got a little over 3 years and then I can retire from my job. And when I retire, then it will be full-time devoted.
Game on.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't see Kyle and I ever stopping doing it because it's so much fun. As long as, I mean, I guess if it ends up getting where nobody's listening and we're not getting stories and something like that happens, then it's over. We're done. We're bored with it. We'll walk away. But
I don't see that being a thing.
I don't think so. I mean, look how long The Simpsons have been on TV. So I'm like, let's just keep going. Let's just keep pumping out shows and keep doing crazy stories and receiving all this stuff. And then we get to talk to other shows like you, and we have all these other friends in podcasting, and it really is like a big family. And then they send you stuff, and then we interact with other people, and they get stories, and they know that we cover these stories or they cover those stories, and then we email them to one another, and you get all this, and then you kind of work as a unit because everybody's rowing in the same direction, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it?
I love it. Mm-hmm.
I love that you guys created a platform, a show which will never get old. I feel like that with my show as well. People like to share their stories, their experiences. You will never run out of guests.
Yeah, I agree.
You'll never run out of stories.
Yeah, we're social creatures. People like it. And we're so fortunate to be born in a time where podcasts were invented that we can even do this because back in the old days, you had to go to broadcasting school and maybe if you had to, do certain things, jump through hoops to get a chance to even be in front of a microphone. And then there's always some corporate entity telling you what you can say and what you can't say, can or can't say, sorry. And, with podcasting, it's free. You can just do whatever you want to do and people can like it or they may not like it, but there's so many choices out there that it's really cool how people can interact. And
it is.
The interaction is my favorite part. So like what Cam was saying, he's about to retire in a couple of years. I won't be able to, but as long as people want to keep sending me their stories and as long as they're willing to listen to me, I would perceive me always doing it.
Well, then I guess you guys have a lifelong commitment to doing the show. Because
until one of us dies.
I know everybody's going to want to continue to listen over and over again. We have a few minutes left, and I do have a question from the chat room.
Yeah, sure.
Do you guys think the government is aware of Bigfoot?
There's part of me that likes to believe that. And now after what came out with the UFOs, there's a really good chance. I mean, if the stories are true that what went down at Mount St. Helens, and then I did a whole article years ago about Teddy Roosevelt and how he brought in all the national parks. If some of that stuff was actually put together, maybe they do know. But Kyle and I go
think
back
it
and
has
forth.
to do with the forestry.
Yeah. We've talked about the logging company. It's one of those things. Like there's a lot we could go. That's a whole nother show. You could get down a whole rabbit hole of stuff that crazy things with the Bigfoot and how it could have been tied with the logging company and the national parks and how the government could be tied into where they could have known that and may have even not only built areas for them, but actively went out, sought them out to eliminate them.
Yeah, because now just like we talked about earlier in the program about the government is now fully acknowledging that there's off-world devices flying around and we know that they've been researching this and keeping it covered up for years. I would only assume if they know something that they're keeping it covered up for a reason, much like Cam's saying was like the logging industry. If it turned out there was a super duper duper rare hominid living in the Pacific Northwest, they would have to stop chopping down trees.
It's a nature preserve from that point forward.
It would cost millions of dollars. And so I'm sure if something like that exists, there's all types of reasons why they keep it hush hush. I knew a guy. It has nothing to do with Bigfoot, but it has something to do kind of along those lines where people keep things covered up, not to get in the way. He was working construction and they were bulldozing or doing something. And he said one day they used a bulldozer and they upended a gigantic skull, not a Bigfoot, looked like a dinosaur, like a Tyrannosaurus Rex skull or a Brontosaurus, Patasaurus. Anyways, it was a gigantic skull. So they stopped, like, holy crap, we just accidentally uncovered a mammoth or something. They went and told the boss man. The boss man jumped in a bobcat, said, get back to work, smashed it up into pieces and threw it in a dump truck and just moved on.
Oh my gosh.
He didn't want it to slow the progress of the construction. They had a time limit that they had, a timeline they had to hit. And he just didn't want to be bothered by it. So I'm wondering how often that kind of thing happens.
Yeah.
There's no telling.
Yeah, we'll just never know. It's one of those things also. We'll just never know.
No.
Yeah, you never know it.
We'll never know. I want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to hear your podcast and follow you guys on all of your social and catch up on all of your episodes because they're all so good. How are they going to do that?
Anywhere you can listen to a podcast, that's where you'll find us. You can search Expanded Perspectives in any search area. You can go to expandedperspectives.com. You can find us on YouTube, and then we're on all forms of social media. So you can find us pretty much anywhere.
iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio,
everywhere.
Just like us. Awesome.
Yep. And then you can just play right along. You can jump right in and see it all. And like I said, we try to pump out shows and try to keep everybody entertained.
Yeah, you can send us your story if you'd like, expandedperspectives@yahoo.com, and maybe perhaps you'll hear us reading it on the air.
Yeah, send in your stories. I would love for people to send in stories to you. I'm sure you have plenty, but send more because
we can never have
doing this for the rest of your lives.
Yeah. You can never have too much.
Never.
No, so good. I have enjoyed my time so much with you guys, and Kyle, I'm glad you joined us this time.
Me too, man. I'm glad. I'm sorry I missed the first time. This has been a lot of fun.
It's so much fun. We really enjoy it. So thankful for it, and we already, just like last time Cam was on, we already have people saying, have him back. So we'll have to do this again soon.
We're always down.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much, you guys. Thanks again.
It was a blast.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Thank you. So Wanderings can be found on all of the main social media platforms as well. And you can also link to all of those by going to soulwanderings.com. And of course, make sure you are following KGRA Radio on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share with your friends and family. And as I always say, let's keep having these conversations. They bring awareness. They connect us to each other. They bring expansion into our experiences. They're just so good. Thanks, everyone, for being here with us tonight. It's been a very enjoyable time. It's so good. Have a wonderful night, Wanderers. Good night.